The world crumbled around him. War, disease, betrayal. But in the middle of the chaos, Marcus Aurelius remained unmoved. His eyes were fixed, not on the empire he ruled, but on the empire within. He was a man who had mastered his mind. From the outside, Marcus appeared as any Roman emperor might, adorned in robes of state, the weight of 1,000 decisions on his shoulders. But inside, he was fighting a different battle, one against impulse, temptation, and despair. As a young man, Marcus wasn't born into greatness. He wasn't destined to be emperor, but fate and philosophy would shape him into one of the most revered leaders in history. Marcus would rise to power, not through ambition, but through duty. Even then, in the heart of his youth, Marcus was beginning to understand the power of his mind, the one realm he could truly control. Marcus Aurelius never asked for the life that unfolded before him. His early years were filled with quiet curiosity, far removed from the ambitions and schemes that filled the corridors of Roman power. A boy who preferred wisdom to wealth, contemplation to conquest. Yet, fate, indifferent to preference, placed him on a different path. At 17, the hand of destiny reached out, and Marcus was adopted by Antoninus Pius, heir to the vast Roman Empire. His simple life faded into memory, replaced by the weight of expectations and the looming reality of leadership. Rome, with its ever-turning wheels of politics and power, now demanded everything from him. For Marcus, duty was not a burden. It was a chance to embody the virtue he had studied in philosophy since childhood. The teachings of his Stoic mentors, Rusticus and Epictetus, were no longer abstract lessons. They became the very compass by which he would navigate a life of unimaginable responsibility. He came to see that true power lay not in the wealth or the armies of Rome, but in mastering the mind and staying true to his principles, no matter how chaotic the world outside became. Years passed, and Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, found himself at the helm of an empire at war. Threats came from the north, from the east, and from within the very heart of Rome as the Antonine plague ravaged the streets. With each new challenge, Marcus did not falter. His strength did not come from the legions at his command, but from his unwavering commitment to self-discipline, to reason, and to a deeper truth. The external world could rage as it pleased, but within, Marcus sought to remain steady, unmoved by fortune or misfortune. His mind became a fortress, a place where even the fiercest storms of the empire could not touch him. In these difficult years, the book Meditations was born. It was not a book written for an audience, but a private journal, a collection of thoughts and reminders Marcus scribbled down while at war, reflecting on his inner struggles and how to face life's challenges. He called it To Himself, and in its pages, Marcus sought to hold on to his principles, despite the storm around him. Each morning and night, he would write notes to keep his mind sharp, his emotions in check. Meditations reveals Marcus not as an emperor, but as a man deeply invested in mastering his inner world. It is a document of a soul striving for peace amidst turmoil. "You have power over your mind," he wrote, "not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The words became a way for Marcus to remember the Stoic philosophy that guided him, that while he could not control the actions of others or the events of the world, he could always control his own thoughts and responses. Meditations is filled with reflections on duty, responsibility, and the transient nature of life. Marcus reminds himself constantly of the impermanence of all things: power, wealth, even life itself. These writings, now studied by millions, were never meant to be published. They were Marcus's way of keeping himself on the path of virtue. Day after day, Marcus Aurelius returned to the lessons of Meditations. In the quiet hours before dawn, while Rome slept, he filled page after page with reflections on life, on duty, on the fleeting nature of power. He did not write for fame, he wrote for clarity. "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be," he reminded himself. "Be one." The emperor's life was filled with distractions. Wars raged at the borders, courtiers whispered in the halls, and the plague claimed the lives of his people. Yet, Marcus remained steady, refusing to let the chaos of the outside world disturb the calm within. It was in this way that he practiced self-mastery, turning inward whenever external pressures threatened to unbalance him. For Marcus, it was the everyday battles that defined a life of mastery, resisting anger when betrayed, refusing indulgence in luxury, staying humble in the face of flattery. These were the real victories, victories of the mind. Throughout his reign, Marcus faced countless opportunities to indulge in the luxuries and excesses of imperial life. The lure of power, wealth, and fame constantly pulled at him. But Marcus resisted, for he saw these temptations for what they were, distractions from the greater pursuit of wisdom. How trivial is the pursuit of fame, and how hollow is the desire for wealth, he reflected. While others built monuments to themselves, Marcus kept his focus on living simply, valuing virtue over vanity. He knew that the power he wielded as emperor was temporary, as fleeting as the seasons. He constantly reminded himself that all things, whether victories or tragedies, would pass. The trials of leadership were not the only hardships Marcus endured. Personal tragedy visited him often. Of his 14 children, only 5 survived to adulthood, and the loss of his children left deep scars. Yet Marcus did not let grief consume him. His writings are filled with reflections on death, not as something to be feared, but as a natural part of life. "Accept death," he wrote, "as you accept everything else that nature brings." His acceptance of suffering was not cold resignation, but a profound understanding of life's fragility. Marcus viewed every loss, every heartache, as part of the human experience. He believed that by accepting what we cannot control, by meeting sorrow with resilience, we could live a life grounded in reality, not illusion. And so, while the empire faced war, plague, and internal strife, Marcus Aurelius faced his own personal battles with the same composure. He accepted the things he could not change and focused on the one thing he could, his response. As Marcus Aurelius approached the end of his life, his body began to weaken. The weight of ruling a vast empire and the toll of personal loss had aged him. But his mind remained sharp, and he continued his practice of daily reflection. Even in his final years, Marcus Aurelius never ceased striving to improve himself. He knew that his time was limited, and with each passing day, his thoughts turned more and more toward the fleeting nature of life. Yet, he did not fear death. He saw it as a natural conclusion, a return to the elements from which we all come. "Death smiles at us all," he once wrote. "All we can do is smile back." When Marcus Aurelius passed away in 180 AD, his reign came to an end, but his thoughts lived on. The pages of Meditations would eventually be shared with the world, and the private reflections of an emperor became a source of wisdom for generations to come. History remembers Marcus Aurelius not only as a ruler of one of the greatest empires, but as a philosopher who sought to master the most important empire of all, the mind. Through his reflections in Meditations, we glimpse the inner workings of a man striving for wisdom and peace in a world of turmoil. He faced war, disease, betrayal, and personal loss, but through it all, Marcus remained steadfast. He showed us that true mastery lies not in conquering others, but in conquering ourselves. His life and his words remind us that while we cannot control the world around us, we can always control how we respond to it. Marcus Aurelius left behind more than an empire. He left behind a way of living, a way of thinking that has endured for centuries. In the end, Marcus Aurelius was not just an emperor. He was the man who mastered his mind.